What's going on, everybody? It's Mr. Buddy here, and today I'm going to be doing a sort of different kind of video. Rather than making a crazy and far-fetched theory video or counting down the top 10 sexiest Pokemon trainers, I'm going to be talking about a real-life location that I would love to see become a Pokemon region. In case that description was too vague for you, I'm of course talking about the United Kingdom, mainly England. Because I'm just a Yank that doesn't know much about Great Britain, I'm going to have to bring in an expert on the country. Unfortunately, the Queen was unavailable for this video, but I think I got the next best person.
Hey Pokemon Masters, Toby here. What time is it?
It's the middle of the day, Toby!
Dude, time difference. You obviously need a hand with this whole UK thing, so I'll stay up a little longer and help you convert the UK into a Pokemon region, complete with cities, landmarks, and Pokemon you'd expect to find there.
Alrighty, so in the name of visualization, I've taken the liberty and made a mock-up of what a region based on the UK might look like. Well, kind of. While it would be awesome to see the entire United Kingdom turned into a Pokemon region, I decided to only map out England, as trying to include Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland proved to be too time-consuming for me to do. Also, it means we could see them later as newer regions attached to England, just like Kanto and Johto in the official Pokemon games. All of the locations on this mock-up are based on real-life cities and places in England. One of the real-life cities, Plymouth, would make an excellent starting point for the region. It's a small seaside town which, as far as Pokemon is concerned, makes it an ideal choice for a starting area.
As you can see to the left of the town, there's a location known as Land's End. In the UK, it's the most southerly western point of the UK. It's as far down as you can go, and it's got such an awesome name. Land's End. You know you're expecting to see some powerful Pokemon there. And moving over to the east, you can see London, which is of course the capital of the UK. This massive city would act as a metropolis in Pokemon. It would be a kind of Celadon / Goldenrod / Lumio City kind of deal.
London is definitely a big city and has so many awesome landmarks and historical locations that would be awesome to see in Pokemon. From the London Eye to Buckingham Palace, there's tons of neat places they could include. They could even put in Big Ben and make it so that a gym leader is at the top of it. The Millennium Dome could also make for a great place to host a Pokemon League.
You've probably by now noticed all the orange dots on the map, which rather than denoting orange orchids, represent areas that are maybe a little less important but still significant to the UK. Like Stonehenge, which is going to definitely be a location in the game and would definitely be home to some legendary Pokemon.
The rest of the region is pretty standard as far as Pokemon regions are concerned, but there are a couple other notable areas to look at. One of the cooler areas to point out is a city based off of Blackpool. I've personally never been there, but Google tells me that it's a beachside resort town that has everything from a roller coaster to a Ferris wheel. This would make a great town in a Pokemon game, and in my mind, I envision it being pretty similar to Nimbasa City, except right by the ocean. Another notable area is right up in the northeastern part of the region. In real life, these two cities, which are Newcastle and Middlesbrough, both have big bridges inside of them that are viewed as landmarks. I think you can see where I'm going with this, but having a bridge in between these two cities, inspired by the real-life bridges, would help diversify the region, and it could be similar to the Sky Arrow Bridge in Unova.
The last big notable thing to talk about is this big bluish circle at the top left hand side of the map, and that represents the Lake District, which is a big national park in England. It's, as the name would imply, filled with lakes and wetlands and rivers. Of course they'd have to shrink it down to Lake of Rage size, but this could be an awesome place to surf about and find some interesting water type Pokemon.
Speaking of Pokemon that would inhabit the region, let's talk a little bit about the geography of England and what types of Pokemon you could expect to find there. The majority of real-life England is flat, but there are areas that can be a little more mountainous, especially near the coasts and by the Lake District. On top of that, there's also numerous rivers that run through the country. You could definitely expect to find a vast array of Pokemon. In the grasslands, you can find Pokemon like Unpheasant, Stantler, Deerling, Mareep, Boniri, Spearow, Tailo, and maybe even Shaman. City areas, on the other hand, would be abundant with Vulpix, Eevee, Glameow, Snubbull, Rattata, and definitely Pidgey.
Let's go back to what I was talking about earlier, the Lake District. Now, while none of the Pokemon you've heard so far are too exotic in nature, there's going to be some pretty cool water-type Pokemon around here. Goldeen, Finneon, Feebas, and of course the ever-elusive Magikarp would all be catchable in this kind of area. And in the area surrounding the lake, you'd be able to find Pokemon like Ducklet, Psyduck, Krabby, Weasel, Tympole, Poliwag. The UK also has a few mountainous and geologically interesting areas where you'd definitely be able to find Pokemon like Bunnelby, Go-Goat, Sawsbuck, Hoot Hoot, Geodude, Onix, Roggenrola, and probably lots of Patrats. I gotta say, the UK would have some cool Pokemon.
The last thing we should talk about is possible new Pokemon they could introduce in this England-based region. Each new Pokemon region usually introduces a couple Pokemon based off of a real-life region's animals, and England definitely has a lot of mythical and real animals to work with. One of the animals I think would make a great Pokemon is the unicorn. The unicorn is actually fairly significant in the UK, and it's one of the animals that is on the Royal Coat of Arms. We've only had a couple unicorns in Pokemon's history, and introducing a new one that could be fairy type or some kind of dual type would be neat to see. Another animal they could use as a basis for a Pokemon comes from that same coat of arms, the lion. In Gen 6 we officially got a lion Pokemon, but they could go all out with it and make a lion legendary to be the counterpart to the unicorn Pokemon.
Finally, let's take a look at mythology, or the UK's questionable history involving King Arthur or St. George. King Arthur was an ancient king who had a legendary sword called Excalibur and was befriended by the greatest wizard of all time, Merlin. And in his life he did many incredible things with that sword, including slaying dragons. And you know dragon-type Pokemon are going to be part of the legends of this region, because then you've also got the story of St. George. St. George is kind of like the most important, I guess, UK holiday. You know how you guys celebrate Independence Day in the US? And you're all like, yeah, we got independence! Well, we're kind of like that, except ours involves slaying a dragon. I don't know. St. George's Day is the 23rd of April, and while mostly celebrated because it is my birthday, it's sometimes celebrated because it's when St. George slayed the last remaining dragon. This is definitely going to be a part of the lore that makes up this Pokemon region.
You know what? All this talk about potential Pokemon a UK region might have has got me thinking. Are Pokemon even animals? Obviously most of them are based on animals, but does something like Honedge even count as an animal? Or is it just a sword?
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting idea to think about. I'll tell you what, why don't we head on over to my channel and discuss it further?
That sounds good to me. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I'll catch you over on Birdkeeper Toby's channel. Nah, but seriously, Toby, what about Golurk in ancient English castles? How dope would that be?
I just love the idea that you can catch a train from the UK region to the Kalos region. After all, it is based off France and they're only across the water from each other. And isn't there an unused train station in Kalos?